In a world of pastels, may your color never fade. You're watching Game Devs of Color Expo 2025, and it's me, the Purple Sharpie, with yet another developer interview. I am joined today by Cerise Palm, lead developer and co-owner at Alchemist Bunny Boutique. How are you doing today, Cerise?
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for telling us even more about your upcoming project currently in early access, Red Thread.
Red Thread is a game where you look for your purpose, and it's also about the relationships that you build and discover while you search for that purpose.
You know, I personally love a purpose, but the only thing I love more than that is a trailer. Roll it, boys! This game is beautiful. It's a meticulous storybook that gives you very big pop-up vibes. Why did you decide to go this direction with the art style in your game?
I've taken so long on the games I've worked on previously because you get so much caught up in the details of trying to make it work and trying to make it come together as a finished product. And so I feel like a storybook is really easy to put together because it's just little pieces of paper that are all glued together and pop up and folded. It helped us kind of have like a visual direction to work towards and a clear goal. But also, I think it really works towards the sort of core feeling we wanted to express, because storybooks kind of bring us back to this time of innocence, this time when like the world was more simple and we were just focused on hanging out with our friends or what we wanted to be when we grew up. Since that's what Red Thread's about, it kind of focused the feeling of the game around those feelings.
There is a lot of characterization inside of this game, and even though it's very heavy in the narrative, it's not exclusively a narrative game. It happens to also be a deck builder and a roguelike all rolled up into one. Specifically, the map inside of the game is very, very unique. The gameplay takes place on a map where movement is determined by a die. And when the player lands on a space, they have to make decisions about which NPC they'd like to interact with. All narrative decisions are made by a die. Why use this playstyle to tell your story?
Well, in the real world, we don't always choose every decision we make. We kind of try to do the best we can and move through the world, even though we're not in control of everything. I feel like so many games give you control over every detail that happens, and that's really far removed from how we actually live our lives. So I wanted to create a game where you kind of were surprised and you didn't know what was going to happen next, and you could influence the story, but it was an indirect kind of influence, not like directly controlling what would happen.
Connections aren't the only thing inside of this game that you can build. The player character is also given the opportunity to create themselves. Specifically, you have a chance to pick your strongest traits and your weakest traits out of Brain, Heart, Charm, Impact, Moxie, and Dream. What impact on the game do these traits have?
When there are different events that you run into, certain events have bonuses for certain types of skills. If you're trying to solve a puzzle, or if you're trying to solve some problem or fix a machine, having a higher brain skill means that you're more likely to accomplish those tasks. You can kind of subtly shape the kind of person you're going to be based on what skills you're strongest at and what skills you're weakest at, because that's going to impact which events you're more likely to succeed or fail. It doesn't necessarily guarantee what's going to happen, but it definitely tilts the odds in your favor. Additionally, whenever you're choosing a skill to solve a problem with, you can pick between multiple different cards. Whatever skill is your strongest skill will always get a bonus. So if your strongest skill is Moxie, every time you pick that card, it's going to be better. So it kind of gives you a bonus for playing in a particular playstyle.
I'm really happy you brought up Moxie because that was the one I chose to be really high in. But it's just because, honestly, my favorite was, I think her name was Jaleesa.
Jamila. She's a bodybuilder and martial artist.
I love her so, so much. I come from the competitive fighting game community, so I have a real predisposition towards scrappy girls, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things that I really liked about Red Thread. There's just a multitude of companions inside of here. To name a few others: Simon the mechanic, Clarissa the normal student, Zara the mailman, you know? How did you decide what and who the companions would be?
I mean, if you take any kind of game, fighting game, narrative games, whatever you may play, there are certain character archetypes that can kind of be seen across different forms of media. And what we wanted to do was take, I guess, lesser appreciated or sort of less frequently represented character archetypes that still are really close to people's hearts. Some people really like clowns, so we have a cute clown girl because they're really cool, but you know, you don't always see them in pieces of media. They're kind of a more niche character archetype. Having like really strong girls who are really good at boxing and could like kick your butt. That's also, you know, a pretty common archetype, but I think we created a pretty unique perspective on it. We just basically wanted to create characters that felt real, but also not characters that you see every day. Like, it's not just a reskin of a character you've seen 100 times before, but one that could be like really special to a particular person.
But that really does tell you that inside of Red Thread, connection is important. I believe the title of the game comes from the Japanese folklore. You're born with a red, specifically thread to your lover, and if there's ever trust broken or if it ever cuts, your relationship dies or you die or something along the lines. Is that correct?
Yeah. We basically wanted it to be a game about trying to discover where that thread goes and forging the bond of that red thread. And we were definitely thinking about that little fable all throughout development.
In 2025, humans, especially Americans, find themselves more divided than ever. Why did you choose to focus on the power of connection and Red Thread?
It's been a pretty tough couple of years, and I don't know, it felt weird to make a game about, like, you know, so many games are about violence at their core. You know, they're about, like, you know, you fight some enemy, you kill them, you win. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it definitely wasn't what either of us wanted to make. We just wanted to create something that made people smile and made people feel hopeful and, you know, was kind of like, sort of like a refuge from everything going on in the world. And so we wanted to create a very cozy game. But usually cozy games are like Stardew Valley, or they're like, you know, like a farming simulator, or we wanted to create one that was cozy, but in a way we hadn't seen before.
You know, it's interesting because the music style inside of this game is very, very cozy. It uses a poppy synth to kind of make almost like bubblegum pop, but it also keeps that backing drum and bass with it until the synth line is eventually joined by the horn, creating a very enthusiastic and almost optimistic story time through the music. I actually really thought it was very interesting because that staccato synth is usually used to create an overwhelming happiness feeling, a feeling that many would equate with something like too optimistic, like Pollyanna-esque.
Yeah,
but the game actually does a great job of balancing it with a very serious, very like forward-thinking, I feel, honesty inside of it as well, using the drum and bass. Can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the music direction that you all decided to go with for this game?
I think you hit the nail on the head with that, because we were looking for a very optimistic sound, but we didn't want it to be like too cute. We wanted it to be something where it felt optimistic and hopeful, but still grounded.
I definitely see that inside of this game. I think a lot of people write off games because of the art direction as just something very, very cutesy and very, very calm and cozy. But I think all cozy games, this one included, are grounded inside of an underlying truth. The map is absolutely no exception. There are different areas, a park, a city, and even an industrial area overrun with pipes and construction. Can you tell us more about the world that we visit through this island inside of Red Thread?
Of course. So our idea behind it is that this island kind of is like a noosphere. It's like an unformed world of ideas inside of the author's head.
Oh, wow.
Not all ideas in our heads are bright and hopeful. So the sort of rundown, rusty industrial sector is kind of like reminiscent of a time that is long past its prime. It's falling apart. Maybe at one point it helped the city, grow, but now it's kind of this rusty, decaying wasteland where nobody really wants to go. The rest of this island is really beautiful, but it kind of exists as this scar up at the top of the island. And we wanted to kind of make it feel like this world was a world that had a lot of different stories within it. It wasn't just one thing. It had like multiple ideas to express.
I understand the development cycle of this game was only a year's length in time, really, really fast turnaround for a two-person team, and that you all used the engine, specifically Game Maker, to focus on this game. Can you tell us a little bit more about the development cycle behind this game?
This game was a little bit interesting because it's a very unconventional game. There aren't a lot of games that have like a Mario Party style like board you can move around on, but also have deck builder mechanics, also have roguelike mechanics. We're kind of a little bit of like a mechanical soup, because we wanted to use these different mechanics to express different ideas. But I feel like every additional ingredient you used becomes harder to work with all of the others. So a lot of the challenge we faced during development was really just explaining to the players or getting the idea across of what you were supposed to do, of what you were supposed to get out of the game. And so a lot of what we've been doing post early access and over the last couple of months to get this game ready for release is sort of bringing it together as like a coherent game loop so that when people play it, they know what they're expected to do next and they feel like they have enough control and agency that it's worth their time to continue playing and investing in the characters. As far as the technical side of things, we've been around the bend a couple of times. We've made a lot of games before that were, varying scopes and varying levels of success. We are at least technically experienced enough that we could avoid a lot of like the technical hurdles. We pretty much knew how to make everything, and it was pretty easy to get things working the way we wanted to. It was just a lot of like, okay, this isn't working. Let's scrap this idea. Let's rebuild it this way. And it was just putting it in the hands of people and getting them to play it and seeing like, okay, how do you like this? What do you want to change? And then responding to their feedback. So it was a really busy year because I think we went to, 6 or 7 different conventions. A lot of them are pretty local ones, to just get it in the hands of people so that they could play it so we could figure out what direction to continue development in.
So Cerise, this is actually your studio's very first project, Red Thread, but you all are currently working on your second project right now. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the business decision to work on 2 games at once and how that fares when you are a 2-person indie team?
I think there's basically 2 strategies we have from a business side of things. One, we want to be pretty fast and flexible, and we also want to keep a pretty small studio. So it's just the 2 of us, and we want to make sure that neither of us are spinning our wheels. So with Red Thread, all of the art's pretty much done. And Alex is the one who does most of the artwork. I help on some of the environmental art, but she does all of the character art and a lot of like the UI art as well. And so she's working on the next game as I'm finishing things up on Red Thread, getting the rest of the bugs worked out, getting the final systems and functionality built in. She's getting started on the next one. And I've basically built enough of a framework that she can now work and start putting the world together and start like, putting the pieces of the game together so that we can get it in the hands of players and see how it works and see what we need to do. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a game. As we're getting onto the tail end of the development on that game, we start thinking about the next one so we can work a little bit in parallel. That way we can just keep getting games out that are cute, well-built, sort of complete experiences. We can take what we've learned from that game into the next one so that the next one is even better. and just create a bunch of really cool games that people like.
And what's interesting is I believe that I've seen this specific business model work very, very well with certain, especially cozy niche games that take over a genre, because you're able to build up that fan base and maintain it over high quality, very specific work. So I really do wish you the best of luck. So Reese, thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And viewer, thank you for spending some time with us here at Game Devs of Color Expo 2025. As always, before you leave, make sure you check out Red Thread, currently in early access on Steam right now. Or check out these lovely developers exclusively on Blue Sky at alchemistbunny.bluesky.social. You'll find me there too, because I will be playing their next game. But we got even more Game Devs of Color Expo 2025 for you. Stay tuned.